And Melissa, you're live.
Council members in attendance are Councilmember Kahn, Forsyth, Carson, Anderson, Kritzer, and online we have Councilmember Fields and myself, Councilmember Stewart. We have 11 items on our agenda tonight, and we have a staff request to move item 11 after number 5. So we will go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 11, and then continue on in the rest of the agenda. Item number 1 tonight is the 2024 Budget and Work Program for a Coalition for Regional Housing, and introducing the item is Deputy Director Seraphy Allen. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, City Council. Each year, the Arch Executive Board recommends a work program and operational budget for the coming year. Ian Lefcourt will brief the committee on this item in preparation for planned council action on November 6th. We are also delighted to be joined by Arch Executive Director Lindsay Masters. Ian?
Awesome. Thank you, Deputy Director Allen. Hello, my name is Ian Lefcourt. I use he, him pronouns. I'm not going to go pretty quick because we have the expert here to go into all the specifics. But the main ask in front of council today is we are requesting this item go onto the consent agenda November 6th. As we've already discussed, this is an annual process, and the specifics I will hand over to our expert witness, Executive Director Masters.
Great, thank you. I'm happy to be here. We were asked to keep it pretty brief given your lengthy agenda, but I'm happy to touch on a few things with the budget and work program that's recommended for next year. The board, led by Carol Helland as our chair, did have a thoughtful discussion this year about what to recommend. We kicked off a strategic planning process earlier in this year, which you may have heard about, and decided that it would be best for us to get to the conclusion of that process before we look at any major changes or additional services within our program. So what you see largely is a continuation of current staffing levels and service levels. We do expect that strategic planning process to wrap up early 2024, and so one of our priorities for next year will be looking at how to implement the recommendations from that process. We did highlight several things in the memo that's in your packet that the board also elevated as priorities for our work program, things that help us really figure out how to focus while we're juggling all the many things that we're trying to do on behalf of cities in their affordable housing efforts. So I'm happy to touch on any of those that you are most interested in hearing about, but also happy to share that we continue the really robust partnership with Redmond. It's one of the most active members that we have in terms of your affordable housing programs. We are working in partnership to administer all of the inclusionary housing projects that are coming online, which is one of the city's greatest successes. So happy to hear your questions, would love to know what you're curious about, and thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. Are there questions from the council? Councilmember Anderson?
As part of your strategic planning process, I know as part of our 2050 process here in Redmond, we've been talking about increasing the requirement for a percentage of low-income housing in some of our newer projects. What impact do you see to Arch if that change is made?
I think on the front end, we would see an opportunity to help you evaluate those types of changes. We've been spending a good part of this year working with an economic consultant and with a lot of engagement with the development community to come up with a tool that helps to model how you impose those requirements or how do you set those requirements. So that's something we're looking forward to test driving with this. We've already test drove it actually with a couple other cities, but happy to look for opportunities to use that in Redmond. And then understanding sort of the city's goals in helping us with that continuing stakeholder engagement. We know it's an incredibly difficult time for a development community to get new projects going right now, but it's also a good time to pause and have those conversations because there's, things are slowed down a little bit.
Thank you.
Councilmember Forsyth.
Thank you. I noticed in the
memo and all the descriptions that there's a higher budget number for legal. Can you just briefly explain that?
Yes, so while the staffing levels did remain constant, there was one new ad for legal services. This was a need brought to the attention of the board by the Bellevue City Attorney's Office, but with advice from staff as well. They have been providing legal services for Arch with respect to agreements that govern all the cities. So, for example, the dollars you put into the trust fund that we loan out to projects like Together Center and other projects. We've had a set of legal templates that we've used probably for the better part of 2 decades, and they're pretty much due for a refresh. So there's some additional expertise that we wanted to help bring in from outside counsel to help us with that. And then also to have some ongoing support for the transactions. We've seen a pretty significant increase in the number of transactions out of that program. The last couple years, it's gone from maybe we would fund 3 projects to more like 7 or 8 projects a year, and it's a pretty significant undertaking on the legal side. So we're helping to sort of offset that workload and bring in that necessary special expertise to the city attorney's office in Bellevue.
Great, thank you.
Councilmember Kritzer.
I was trying to look through and interpret if there's that much new, but I think as you said, you're doing this strategic planning process, so it may be that you haven't beefed up yet on it. But I know one thing that I think I brought up last time you were here was that we hear a lot from residents about, their interest in Arch's both oversight on existing affordable housing and kind of the conditions there and the responsiveness of those providers, as well as around kind of the opportunity of how to navigate even through the Arch system to be able to get housing. In the last year, we took the Arch recommendations and did pass protections based on those great recommendations that came to us from you all. And one thing that we've been hearing a lot from the public is about the need for people to just be able to learn more about that and understand how to use those. And so I'm just curious, all 3 of those in terms of kind of the public education piece, where do you see in this work plan, is there going to be an increase in terms of that work, or is that going to be something you're looking to in the strategic plan?
It's definitely one of the areas we've identified as an important topic to wrestle with. And I will add, to market this to all of you, we hope to gather input from elected officials on what you think are the important strategies for us to focus on. That's an area of need that we've certainly seen and have, of course, lots of other needs in the programs that are competing needs as well. So we haven't gotten to the end yet, so I won't sort of anticipate what the outcomes are going to be, but that is certainly something as staff we brought forward into the process that we needed to make sure the level of expectations for what services we can provide, how people interact with our programs, matches what the city's goals are, and how we're funded to do that work.
And in terms of the services that you do plan to offer in this work plan, can you share a little bit more in terms of like that navigation for renters?
Yeah, we honestly don't have staffing capacity to provide individual navigation. We have one position that oversees all of the rental program units in all the cities. And the vast majority of that time is on training properties on compliance, monitoring compliance, following up on non-compliance, and then some individual work with residents where we do have an opportunity to help resolve issues, and it's things that we actually can have a positive impact on. But the front end of trying to find the housing, apply for the housing, calling all the properties looking for vacancies, those aren't things that we built into the work plan at this point.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. So the ask before the council is to add this to our consent agenda on November the 6th. Are there any objections to this item going to consent? Councilmember Kritzer?
I don't have an objection, but I do have one follow-up question, if possible. You mentioned that you would love to get our feedback as you're doing this work. Can you just share about what's the best timing and way to provide that feedback?
We have, it's going to be pretty soon. We have a set of documents we're finalizing to share that sort of reflect where we are in the process. And so that's going to be coming out likely with a little survey that folks can fill out.
Great, I look forward to that, and I'm supportive of putting this on consent. Thanks.
Great. I think that seeing no objections, we will have this item on our consent agenda on November the 6th. Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Item number 2 on our agenda is to approve $282,420 for the Washington Conservation Corps 2023-2024 agreement between the City of Redmond and the Washington State Department of Ecology. Introducing the item today, we have Director Aaron Burt.
Good afternoon, council members. Good to see everybody. 3 items from Public Works on the calendar today, all seeking consent on October 17th. First one is a grant from the Department of Ecology. This funds our Washington Conservation Corps. We use these individuals to help maintain our restoration sites. Normally, when we put in a restoration site or do an environmental project, it takes anywhere from 5 to 10 years of continual maintenance to get that to take hold. This is a continuation of the agreement that we've had with ecology, and we've had great success with the Conservation Corps over the years.
Thank you. Are there questions from the council? Councilmember Kritzer.
I just can't resist making a comment because I really love this program. I just think it's so great, both in terms of developing our next generation of environmental leaders and doing these amazing restoration and stewardship projects. So love getting to see some of them out in action, and it's a really incredible program.
Yeah, totally agree. The crew that we have, they really are engaged. They get out there, they get after it. It's amazing how hard they really work to maintain these sites. We're really lucky to have this program.
Great. So any objection to this item going to consent on October the 17th? Seeing none, I think we'll have this one back then. Thank you. Item number 3 is approval of the Redmond Paired Watershed Study contract amendments in the amount of $70,050 with the Washington State Department of Ecology and $84,050 with Herrera Environmental Consulting. Director Burt.
Yeah, so this is an expansion of our street sweeping and monitoring in the Tosh Creek watershed. It's extending it out an additional year. This project was originally started 2 years ago, where we got a grant from King County Water Works that allowed us to do additional street sweeping in this area. Essentially, what we're doing is Herrera is collecting and analyzing all the great stuff that we're sweeping up in this watershed and looking for certain contaminants and reporting back to us on that. So it gives us an extension of this project for another year through the end of 2024.
Great. And this item is also up for consent on October 17th. Are there questions from the council? Councilmember Forsyth.
Thanks. So we know this program works. We like this program, most of us, I assume. What does this look like moving forward in the coming years, and when does it move out of kind of that exploratory pilot?
So a couple things that we're doing. One, we are beginning to look at this about how we could build this into a regular budget ask moving into the next biennium. Taking a look at potential additional outside funding sources to keep this going, and then what would it look like for us to also put some dollars up internally through the utility fund. So Councilmember, we're definitely moving in that direction. It's been a great proof of concept for us. We oscillated back and forth a little bit on whether or not we would pay our staff overtime to do the sweeping versus bringing in a consultant. And what we found is actually we get better production and response when we're doing it on overtime, because sometimes our employees like to make a little extra. But we have found doing it in-house has given us a little bit better control and consistency over this program. So I think you definitely look in the budget process next year. We'll be coming back for something permanent.
Great to hear. And then are we also looking at potentially expanding it? Because that watershed map was really interesting to see.
Yeah,
And then
definitely.
how many we have.
Yeah, I think, I'm drawing a blank on the number of watersheds. I should know that. Apologies. But it is definitely showing that the additional sweeping is making a difference. And so we are doing this year, we are starting our surface water management system plan, and this will be a component that we'll be looking at that as well in terms of where those priority areas will be to apply this resource towards.
Great. Well,
Yep.
I'm all for it, so can't wait to see that
Great.
come to us.
Thank you. Other questions from the council? Seeing none, are there objections to this item going to consent on October the 17th? All right, I would think we'll have this one back then. Thank you. Item number 4 is the approval of the interlocal agreement with the City of Kirkland for the signal and intersection improvements at the 132nd Avenue Northeast and 100th Street intersection.
Yes,
Excuse
great.
me. An item very welcomed by the neighboring community.
Yes, absolutely. So council, during the budget process this past year, put $1.1 million in the CIP. This is our contribution to a joint project with the city of Kirkland. As a reminder, on 132nd, it's a north-south corridor in an area that's expanding there on the western edge of the city. The boundary line between Redmond and Kirkland actually is on the east side of the street. So in essence, we have one stoplight that would be on city property, but at this intersection and the continued growth, it warrants a full four-way stop. Kirkland is going to be managing this. This is the interlocal agreement, and the target for completion is in 2025.
Are there questions from the council? Councilmember Forsyth.
So excited for there to be a light at this intersection. I know it's a very busy throughway that a lot of people use, but interested in the pedestrian access for that area too. There's just down the road from there, there's no sidewalk, there's no safe spots for bus stops. What does the plan look like moving forward for expanding safer streets?
So connectivity for pedestrian access up and down that road is predicated on Kirkland and their standards for redevelopment. We are running into situations on 132nd because of the right-of-way that when we redevelop, or I should say a parcel redevelops
Right.
on 132nd, the developer has to develop to Kirkland standards for sidewalks and right-of-way improvements, just because of how the boundary line falls. In terms of full connectivity on there, Councilmember Forsyth, I don't know for sure, but it's something that we can take a look at. I haven't talked with Kirkland about what their long-term plans are for pedestrian access there, but
That'd be very interesting.
we'll see what we can find out, and I'll get back to you.
Great.
Yep.
Councilmember Carson.
Thank you. So I know this intersection pretty well. I'm surprised that the car counts support a full full lighted intersection. 130 seconds. You know, I mean, it's fairly busy, but right now it's a four-way stop, correct? It's like
I want to say yes.
flashing red,
Yes,
I think it
yes.
is. Yeah, it's like a flashing red with stop signs. Okay, because I don't know, it doesn't seem like it's really to that level. Have we talked to them about why, do they just feel that this has got the kind of capacity or volume that would warrant it?
So it's my understanding that this project and coming into it as a joint use has been in the works for some time. And this is, I think, one of those aspects where we're making an infrastructure investment now to get ahead of the growth that's coming into that area to support that.
So, yeah, I mean, I'm not opposed to that philosophy at all, but I would say that we probably have better investments to make at same road, 132nd and 85th versus this intersection.
Sure.
So because that's been a problem for a long time, and I think we've done a little bit of rechanneling, but we've not really done any kind of major work there so I'm kind of on the fence about this one because I think, if you don't do that one, then you have this money to do presumably, something along that corridor that would be more beneficial. And to me, that would be more beneficial. So
Councilmember, would you like some background information on how this rose up to this level of
sure.
approval? Okay.
Because again, I think they know we have problems at 132nd, 85th, and 132nd and 100th it's basically a residential neighborhood. It's not a commercial corridor. It's not. It's a commercial corridor on 132nd, but 100th is not. Whereas 132nd and 85th are both commercial and access to residential neighborhood corridors. So, yes, I would love more information.
Sure, I'm happy to dig into the project files and see what I can get for you.
Okay, great, thanks.
I have a direct response to Councilmember Carson, and then I'll go to Councilmember Fields and then Councilmember Kritzer. Councilmember Carson, this has been in all the plans that, Council has approved over the last several cycles. And I will just add that during National Night Out a couple years ago, a year ago, I guess, I had a chance to attend one of the parties in this neighborhood gatherings, and walking in and introducing myself, the very next question was, when is this happening? When is this happening? So this, I think, is something that the community has long been expecting, and especially as the director noted, the cottage housing and the density of housing going up in that area, it's definitely been a safety concern for the neighbors for a bit.
I think I'm actually thinking of the wrong street. So 80th is the one I was.
Oh, my
it's
microphone
obviously
wasn't
100th.
Okay.
And so that kind of changes things because same thing, I went to I guess I'm mistaken about the intersection we're talking about, because I think, 80th, and that's what I thought we were talking about, sorry.
Okay.
100th, 80th, big difference, because north of 85th, so, okay, that makes more sense. Thank you, sorry.
I'm glad we could work it out. That's great. Thank you. Love that. Councilmember Fields.
I'm going to withdraw my comments based on the conversation between you and Councilmember Carson. I was just going to remind that turns out that's a thoroughfare connection between 124th and 85th, and then sometimes during the day, that road is just a continuous stream of traffic. So I appreciate Councilmember Carson's desire to make sure that we get the best bang for our buck and we establish our priorities. I also appreciate the fact that he acknowledged that he was thinking of a different location. So thank you all.
Cool. Mutual Admiration Society. I believe Councilmember Kritzer was next.
Well, I love what's just been going on here. But I'll just one quick question on terms of the actual funding for it. So based on the memo, this was already in our budget. And can you just remind us, so those Microsoft concurrency funds that are helping to pay for this, those are funds from Microsoft for upgrades to development in that area?
I actually don't have the answer for you on that in terms of the parameters for those dollars that are used, but I can find that out and let you know.
Okay, yeah.
But what I do know on that is that we do have some flexibility in terms of the use of those dollars for transportation improvements that help facilitate movement in and around those areas. So, but I'll find out the specific details for you.
Great. There's some detail in there. I was wondering if you'd had more commentary. So I'm good if you don't want to follow up, unless you have more information. Just to confirm that my understanding was correct would be great.
Thank you. Other questions from the council? All right, this item, the ask is for consent on October the 17th. Maybe we'll hear some more about the concurrency dollars. Are there any objections to this item going to consent on the 17th? All right, we will have that one. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And we will turn our attention back to our friends in planning and community development. As a reminder, we're going to item number 5 and then item number 11. Item number 5 is approval of Startup 425 interlocal agreement amendments. We are joined by Deputy Director Seraphy Allen and Economic Development Manager Philly Marsh. Welcome.
Thank you, and I'm going to get comfortable because I'll be here for a little bit. So the title of this item is the approval of Startup 425 ILA amendments. The City of Redmond has been part of the Startup 425 collaboration effort for 7 years, and these amendments mostly reflect administrative changes. We are requesting that this item be placed on the October 17th consent agenda, and I'm going to turn it over to Philly Marsh, our Economic Development Manager, to give us more details.
Thank you, Deputy Director Allen. Startup 425 is a collaborative effort of 5 Eastside cities and the Port of Seattle that began in 2016 with a focus on fostering new business creation across all industries. The City of Bellevue began as administrator of the collaborative effort between the cities of Bellevue, Issaquah, Kirkland, Redmond, and Renton, and Kirkland has been the administrator of the program for the last 4 years. The program is now returning to the City of Bellevue for administration. The ILA amendments reflect this administration change, as well as allow the opportunity for additional cities to join the effort. What we are seeing is after a decade of strong growth at large employers, companies are reducing their headcounts, and many experienced and highly skilled individuals may consider new opportunities in entrepreneurship. Historically, economic and employment downturns are booms for new business creation, and the Startup 425 programming is reflecting this opportunity to help recently laid off tech employees through startup education, co-working, and networking events. This effort is supported by the Port of Seattle grant, and we are requesting this item to be placed on the October 17th consent agenda.
Thank you, Ms. Marsh. Are there questions from the council? All right. Seeing no questions and assuming there's no objection to this item going to consent on October 17th, I think we'll have it back then. Thank you. Item number 11 on our agenda is authorizing the mayor to sign a strategic alliance memorandum of understanding with the United States Small Business Administration. Thank you.
All right, so there is no fiscal impact with this MOU. We are just requesting that this item be placed on the October 17th consent agenda. And again, Philly will provide a few more details.
Thank you. So again, this is a partnership for small business support. The purpose of this strategic alliance memorandum is to develop and foster mutual understanding and a working relationship between the SBA and the City of Redmond to strengthen and expand small business development in the local area. The SBA has many tools and programs available to small businesses, including the Small Business Development Center program, which we have active here in Redmond. This last May, we were honored to welcome SBA Administrator Guzman to Redmond, and this MOU will continue a strong relationship and benefit to Redmond's small businesses. Just as a quick reminder and plug, next month we will be celebrating Small Business Saturday and feature our vibrant small businesses here in Redmond as a place to support as we head into the holiday season. And again, we were requesting this to be placed on the October 17th consent agenda.
Thank you so much. Are there questions from the council? Councilmember Anderson.
Quick reminder on the date for the Small Business Saturday.
It's the Saturday after Thanksgiving.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilmember Kritzer.
Can you share, I'm trying to understand how this fits with also our work that we do with One Redmond as our small business development support as well, and what the vision is of how this will all intersect with those efforts.
Right. So the small business support ecosystem is large, and there's many partners, and it's kind of ever changing. The SBDC Small Business Development Center is a program under One Redmond as well. So our advisor and through our contract with One Redmond for our scope of service supports that business advisors work. So this is with kind of the of the larger SBA entity. And again, the intention is really just to have that information sharing and partnership and intentionality moving forward. So we understand the different loan opportunities and programs coming directly out of the SBA. And then we work hand in hand with One Redmond, who helps administer many of those programs and inform businesses of them.
Thank you.
Small Business Saturday is November 25th.
Thank you so much. Are there other questions from the council about the MOU? Seeing none, are there objections to this item going to consent on October the 17th? Okay, we will have this back in 2 weeks. Awesome. Thank you so much. And we will move on to item number 6, which is the approval of the 2024 Tourism Funding Lodging Tax Advisory Committee's recommendations. Introducing the item is Deputy Director Allen.
Thank you. This agenda item will be presented by Jackie Layler, our Economic Development and Tourism Program Administrator. The Lodging Tax Advisory Committee, LTAC, met on September 5th to review 22 external grant applications and 3 city applications for 2024 funding. I will now turn it over to Jackie to provide details on the LTAC funding's recommendations.
Thank you and good afternoon. The total funding amount brought forward for council's approval is $336,000, with $36,000 coming from the end fund reserves if necessary. Per council's feedback from January 2020 and additional feedback from November 2021, the grant application criteria was broken out by components that support the overall tourism criteria. Each category was assigned points, to which applications received a weighted score and ranking. The scores were considered in the funding discussions among other factors, such as, but not limited to, past awarded amounts and overall budget constraints. LTAC recommends funding 20 of the 22 external applications that demonstrate alignment with the grant criteria and tourism goals. The 3 city applications are budgeted for $150,000 and allocated per the 2005 council-approved distribution of funds. 2 external applications were not recommended for funding by the LTAC due to not meeting the tourism criteria set forward. One of the applications not funded outlined an event concept and did not have a developed event plan, venue, or contacts in place at this time. The other application not recommended is for a fundraising event that was given $1,500 in the past. However, this event is quite small with approximately 150 attendees and has yet to drive any paid overnight stays. Staff and our tourism partners will work with both of these event producers on ideas to drive a tourism benefit in the future where possible. We would like direction today from the council on proceeding to the October 17th consent agenda. And at this time, are there comments or questions?
Thank you so much for coming back to us with these recommendations. Questions from the council? Councilmember Kritzer.
I'm talking a lot today. Just a comment to say thanks to the LTAC for the thoughtful work on this. Great to see so many applicants. And I also appreciate with the tiered scoring to see on kind of the lower level ones that they got some funding and that opportunity to kind of prove their worth through getting some seed funding to be able to start especially some of the ones that are newer. It'll be interesting to see how they develop and grow and how they attract people to our city. So appreciate all the thought that went into that.
Thank you.
Councilmember Forsyth.
Thank you. I definitely appreciated the chart and the color coding. That was really helpful. And the note on the side that the hoteliers weren't necessarily seeing the same numbers that were being brought forward. So I look forward to seeing that continue to grow, and having more of that information is really helpful.
Other questions or comments from the council? Okay, I'll just add in my gratitude. This has been a slightly different process and a lot of thought going into this year, so thank you so much. I appreciate all of the level of detail, as my fellow council members have suggested. We have this set for consent on the 17th. Are any objections? Oh, Councilmember Fields. Could you sense me holding space for you?
Thank you. Since we all thank each other all the time, I really want to thank Councilmember Forsyth for noticing the color coding, because the committee members were really excited when the color coding was presented to them and it simplified. So thanks for acknowledging that.
Okay, and we will have this item for consent on October 17th. Thank you so much, everyone. Next on our agenda is item number 7, approval of a contract with Vistas Consulting USA LLC not to exceed $75,000 for a tourism strategic plan. Take it away, Director Allen.
Thank you. Sorry, I thought we were done with these folks. I was going to invite the other folks. My apologies. Today, we are seeking council's direction to put the tourism strategic plan contract on the October 17th consent agenda. As you'll remember, this came out of the study session that we did with you all and also with LTAC, and Jackie will go into more details.
Thank you. As mentioned, we are asking for council's approval of the contract with Vistas Consulting. The contract is for $75,000 to complete a tourism strategic plan that will help inform future programming of our tourism program. As a reminder, council approved the LTAC's recommendation on July 18th for an RFP to create a tourism strategic plan not to exceed $80,000. Council has continued to give staff valuable feedback, which has been incorporated into the scope of work. Vistas Consulting is an international company that was chosen through 2 cross-department scoring rounds. There were 5 respondents, and Vistas scored high based on their clear understanding of the scope of work, which included a custom-built team of topic experts, national and regional knowledge of best practices, their experience working with multiple tourism funding streams, and their proven experience in tourism stakeholder engagement. This work will be funded through the Lodging Tax Reserve Fund, which currently sits around $787,000. Again, we are asking for direction from council on proceeding to the October 17th consent agenda. Questions or comments?
Questions from the council? Okay, seeing no questions and assuming there's no objections, we'll see this back on the 17th. Thank you so much. You all may be excused. Giving a moment for some staff transition, that concludes the action items for this agenda. Items 8, 9, and 10 are preparations for staff reports on the 17th of October. The first one, item number 8, is Redmond 2050 Supplemental Draft Environmental Impact Statement. And we have Deputy Director Allen and Becky Fry with us.
Thank you. On September 20th, the city published a supplemental draft environmental impact statement for Redmond 2050. Becky Fry will brief the committee on this item in preparation for the staff report on October 17th. Becky?
So, Council, I just want to quickly remind you the reason why we added the supplemental draft environmental impact statement into the process. It was an added process. We're wanting to do additional detail and study for the preferred alternative, and that is covered in the supplemental draft. Also, we wanted some additional time for the state process for the affordable housing spectrum and targets and guidance to come out, and for us to be able to fold that into this work as well. We also have incorporated in the supplemental draft environmental impact statement additional information on the SEPA actions that we would like to take, and there's some exciting things that we would like to highlight and go over with you next week. Additional detail into the overlay planned action updates, but also how we're taking advantage of some relatively recent legislative changes for a citywide SEPA infill exemption for housing. So that has also been folded into the supplemental draft, and we're happy to share some details on that when we come back on the 17th. The biggest piece of the report that the folks who commented on the draft would be looking for is we also responded deeply to all of the comments that we received on the draft. So in Chapter 4, all of the comments have been documented and responded to. This supplemental identifies what changes and what investments we will need to make in order to accommodate the level of growth that we're anticipating. And I am here tonight to ask what questions you might have to go and what I can prepare for you for our conversation on the 17th.
Great. Are there questions from the council at this time? Councilmember Forsyth.
Thank you. So when I was looking through the attachment A, I was getting kind of excited looking at maps because maps are fun. But it struck me that I was thinking more about future-proofing past 2050 and wondering if there has been thought process given to that, because we're seeing a lot of great development happening along the transit line, and what the future build out of that might look like and how the impacts of that may, and I'm probably getting ahead of myself here, but what the impacts of that may be once we hit towards 2050 and what that growth looks like beyond. If that's too far in the future, I understand, but that's kind of where my brain was spinning on this on first glance.
I can definitely bring some information on some of the conversations that were had during the process and how that will fold into future reviews.
Wonderful, thank you.
Councilmember Kritzer.
I think excited based on what you said. I want to hear all of that. But I am curious in particular to be able to hear from the last time that we saw some of this modeling, any sorts of adjustments you made to the assumptions that went into the model in the current preferred alternative. Obviously took a lot of different feedback into account. And I know we started from a model with certain data inputs, but then we made more of a custom one. So just would love to hear a little bit more of the detail of how we got to the current preferred alternative model.
Great, there were definitely some changes that were made, so I'd be happy to go through that.
Other questions from the council ahead of the study session on the 17th? Okay, so I think folks can continue to get in touch with the team if something occurs to them. But for today, it looks like we're ready and looking forward to the conversation and the study on the 17th. Thank you so much. Item number 9 on the agenda is the Redmond Flex Master Program Development Agreement and Site Entitlement Plan. This is a Type 5 quasi-judicial item.
Thank you. So as mentioned, this is an upcoming project that will require council decision. So introducing this item will be Dave Lee, our Development Review Planning Manager.
Good afternoon. It's great to be in front of you all again. It's been a while. I'm actually sitting in for Tim McHarg, who's our principal planner, who will be bringing this project to you. This project is the Redmond Flex. It's a master plan development agreement and site plan entitlement. The project is a Type 5 quasi-judicial consolidated review permit, which means the city council will be responsible for ultimately providing a decision after holding a hearing on the matter. This requires the city council to adhere to the appearance of fairness doctrine. Staff asks that the city council refrain from any ex parte communications, and any ex parte communications should be documented with the date, time, and party you've spoken to. This information can be disclosed at the public hearing when the city attorney asks if there were any ex parte communications. In summary, the development is for a redevelopment of a 5.82 acre in the southeast Redmond neighborhood. That'll also consist of a 135,000 square foot building used for manufacturing and trade. 1,500 square feet of that will be used for a commercial component, likely a storefront, if there's any retail involved with that. Also proposed is a public open space that integrates into the future Southeast Redmond Park, which is currently under a master planning process. And that's just south of the site that we'll be talking about. The project will be a single-phase construction with no expanded vesting requests or city concessions in terms of zoning incentives. 2 neighborhood meetings were already held. The first one on May 25th, 2022, with no participants. Another one was held on July 28th, 2022. One participant came out and asked about parking requirements and construction access for the site. A third neighborhood meeting will be scheduled prior to the neighborhood meeting, just to ensure that everybody's well aware of this project coming forward. We would love to bring a staff report to the city council on October 17th, even though it sounds like a very packed schedule already. And followed by that, we would like to have a study session on October 24th and then a hearing on November 21st, at which the council may render a decision at the close of the hearing. So that's it for me.
Thank you. Questions from the council? Councilmember Forsyth.
So I read this attachment multiple times, and I'm still having trouble envisioning what this is going to look like. So if you could just, like, shopping plaza in the front, what I'm kind of seeing is shopping plaza in the front, manufacturing in the middle? Is that correct?
The primary building, from my recollection, I can actually make sure that Tim brings forward a robust design review board package.
That would be amazing.
To kind of help you with that. But yes, it is primarily going to be a large warehouse type looking facility with a small commercial component to it.
Okay.
So, and that would be situated more towards the middle of the lot.
Okay, yeah. Having some of those documents would be helpful, I think. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Other questions from the council? Okay, well, seeing no other questions, it looks like we're excited to hear the rest of the story on the 17th.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much. And the last item on our agenda tonight, item number 10, is ratification of King County planning-wide policies, which is also set for a staff report on October 17th, and we've been joined by Jeff Churchill.
Good afternoon, council members. When the King County Council adopted, sorry, I'm supposed to let Seraphy introduce this.
You go for it, I did.
Oh, but there were such good notes that I wrote. Go ahead.
Okay. This summer, no, it's okay. It's our last item, so we get a bit of grace. This summer, the King County Council approved amendments to the King County countywide planning policies. Say that 5 times fast. The amendments are now subject to ratification by cities in King County, and Jeff will be doing the briefing for this item.
When the King County Council adopted major amendments to the countywide planning policies in 2021, at the same time, it asked the Growth Management Planning Council, the GMPC, to conduct research and analysis related to meeting affordable housing needs as required by amendments to the Growth Management Act, known as House Bill 1220, that was adopted by 2021 in the state legislature. The 2023 amendments that are before you now are largely the product of that work effort. So that's what you're seeing. And the amendments do 2 things. They establish affordable housing needs for each city in King County. These are not going to be new to the Redmond City Council because we've been talking about them for months. So I hope when you saw them, you saw, oh yeah, this is what we've seen from staff already. And they establish an accountability and implementation framework for meeting affordable housing needs. Part of that accountability framework is a review of consistency with countywide planning policies for the housing element. Redmond is the first city in King County to have gone through that review, and the letter is attached in the packet that you received for this afternoon. We're preparing a staff report for October 17th, and I would love to know if there are questions or topics related to these CPP amendments that you would like specifically addressed at that time.
Councilmember Forsyth.
Just interested if anything came as a surprise. I'm guessing no, but love to hear staff's take.
Thank you. Other questions from the council? Councilmember Kritzer.
Well, I'm excited that Redmond got to go first in terms of getting these recommendations because we can put them to work sooner. So yeah, I guess I am curious as we look at our housing element, just taking, it seemed like it was overall pretty positive feedback, but there were some actionable things for us to do to understand how we're going to be incorporating that into our policy making going forward, because there's some good recommendations there that would only strengthen the work that I think we've already done.
Okay.
Other questions from the council? Okay, seeing none, it looks like we're ready to have that conversation on the 17th. Looking forward to it. And if there are no further questions, that actually concludes our agenda this evening. Thank you. We are adjourned after 11 items, and I'm a bit in disbelief, but thank you, everybody. Enjoy your 9 minutes. Have a great day.